Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going over to England to chat with author Sam Davey about her latest novel called The Chosen Queen. And I encourage you to get it. Go to her website, samdavyroughmagic.net. The link is in the episode notes. And this is a novel of the Pendragon prophecy. Ooh, who doesn't want to hear about the Pendragon prophecy? Welcome, Sam. How are you?
Great, Lisa. And it's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
This is exciting. I want to give everyone an overview of the story, but first tell us about Pendragon.
So Pendragon is the name given to Uther, who is the father of Arthur. It's very much linked to Welsh mythology, that the dragon that is there to save Britain, to save Wales. And the Pendragon prophecies are the prophecies that Merlin, I think most people have heard of Merlin, the druid and the magician, has uncovered, and that he believes he needs to help put in place to basically enable Britain to become a stronger and more prosperous country. So these prophecies fall throughout the book. I'm actually writing 5 books. I've nearly finished book 2, and they take us all the way through from the time before Arthur is born, which the Chosen Queen covers, all the way through to the very end of the final battle. And the Pendragon prophecies are a sort of a theme, a thread that runs throughout all of them.
But there's also strong women involved in this. So that's why I was saying we're going to put this on our Women Making History show, because your main character, she's a strong woman, but loves her husband, right? And then there's choices to be made about this. I mean, you can tell, I'm in the beginning of it, and I'm like, well, she really cares about him. But then they have there's that, okay, I'm not going to tell my husband everything, I was in a rest area. We travel full time, and we were and this was of the presidential elections here in this country. And I'm not saying this to be political, but we were in a bathroom in the state of Louisiana, and I look up on the wall, because bathroom writings are always quite interesting. And it said, "Ladies, remember, you don't need to tell your husband who you're voting for." And I thought, wow. And I took a photo of it because, I don't know, bathroom photography may be my next thing in life. But I was thinking about that today with your book, not bathroom writing, because I don't believe you're writing this in the bathroom whatsoever. But it's just that you have to start not being 100% with the person you love. It's a weird gray area to be in.
Yeah, I think you're right. And absolutely, this is a feminist retelling. It's an interesting fact. There are over 6,500 books have been written around sort of the Arthurian stories, around Camelot. So many spin-offs. I mean, books have been written about this since the 1100s. And I couldn't find one in which Igraine is really the central character. It doesn't mean she doesn't appear. She does. But this story is based on deceit. It's based on what happens to Igraine. And I wanted to tell that story from a woman's perspective. And I think you're right, because one of the things that Igraine feels, she is at the heart of this conflict between her husband, Gorwa, and Uther Pendragon, because Uther Pendragon has, whether he's fallen in love with her or whether he just lusts after her, he wants her. And he's not prepared to acknowledge the fact that she is a married woman who does love her husband. And this draws a huge conflict between, obviously, Gorwa, her husband, and Uther, and civil war breaks out. And Igraine actually wants to play it down, because she doesn't want there to be a war. And this is what, again, is really interesting. If you go back and look at the character of Igraine, going right back to the history of the kings of Britain, written by Geoffrey of Monmouth in the 1100s, actually says that Igraine's character is such that she would rather suffer herself than see her people go through civil war and go through the upheavals. And that is the character that I brought into this book. She has suffered, but she would much rather take that herself than have her lands pillaged and destroyed and villages burned. And to do that, it means that she does have to consider exactly what she will tell her husband and what she won't.
Yeah, because you're playing two sides, but it's all for care for both sides too.
Yeah.
I mean, and war at that point, men were very, oh, that's it. We're going to go to war. One little action and we're going to war. Kind of her character, I mean, Igraine has been around, like you said, right, for quite a while, but her characteristics kind of remind me of Boudica. Now I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Everybody says Boudica, Boudica.
That name has been, in my lifetime, it's been
misused.
Boudica, Boudicca. It's a rose by any other name. We know who, yeah.
Yeah, but her character was also of strength. I mean, she went to war, right? Which was a little different, but I mean that she loved her husband and also disagreed with him a little bit on where things were going, because she was seeing where things were going to get rough and he was trying to be, yeah.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting connection on that, and then she rose up and people didn't expect her to rise up either.
No, exactly. And she is obviously, in terms of British history, there's a statue to her in the middle of London, and she's this remarkable warrior woman, sort of standing there on her chariot, and she literally is standing, not sitting, and the horses are charging forwards, and she is just this absolute image of strength and determination. And Igraine is the same. I mean, she doesn't want war, because I think the difference is what Boudica, or however you want to pronounce her, she felt that her people were being threatened. She felt, and she was right, because, the Romans took Britain and they remained there for over 400 years of conquest and invasion.
Yeah.
So she was absolutely right. Whereas Igraine's view is, we've only just come to some sort of settled peace in terms of the Saxon invasion and Uther managing to subdue the tribes. Let's not go to war again, and particularly let's not go to war about me.
Yes,
I think both of them were driven by a desire to protect their people and to protect the land. And I think that is something that women feel very strongly. The soldiers, they will lay waste the land, they will cut down the crops, they will plough the fields with salt so they can't bring forth their crops. Whereas Igraine in the book is very much involved with the goddess and with the nurturing of the land and with fertility and with actually honouring everything that enables us to live in peace and harmony with our environment.
Yeah, so she's the maternal one, the nurturer.
Absolutely.
And they both were. It's just the strength that I think, and also that, the women of these times, like we're saying, they're just kind of forgotten, at some point. It's like, well, they really teach us, like, the saying of the meek will inherit the earth. So there's that part of it too, where strength doesn't mean that you have to cut someone's head off.
Absolutely. And quite often, I think that the strongest person is the person who is the most restrained, because you're actually having to discipline yourself and think of others rather than just what you do. And again, in the book, one of the things that is very difficult for Igraine is that she is this victim of gossip and bad mouthing and people's slanders. I mean, in many ways, she's being trolled. She's forced to dance with Uther in front of the court. She's been promenaded in this beautiful gown, this enchanted dress that makes her desire her even more. And she is then spoken of as if she has done something terrible, and her morals are called into question. And it's the same sort of thing that you see with people who stand up for something in social media, and they get denigrated, and they have to deal with a really difficult and challenging set of circumstances outside of their own control. And she's very much like that. She is very much somebody who is not prepared to accept the views of others. She's not prepared to, if they believe that's who she is and she knows she's not, she's got that strength, that inner strength. And that is what holds her through right to the end, which is why the book's called The Chosen Queen, because although she's chosen to do things by so many people, ultimately she makes the choice about her own destiny and she holds strong to it.
That's important. Yeah. And I think that's where Boudica also, same thing. She made the choice of her destiny, but she was also very caring about her children who were slain.
Yes.
It's that when you think about these stories, though, you've got 5 books in a series that you're doing, right? So does it continue? I mean, does Igraine keep going on, or is it 5 books within that time frame?
So the relationship between Igraine and her children is of huge importance to this. And without giving away too much, Igraine does not die at the end of book 1 and is a continuing presence throughout the 5 books. But one of the things that I really loved writing was building her relationship with her young children. And I think one of the most frightening things, if you are a mother yourself, she had 3 children and all of them were removed from her. Every single one of her children were taken away. Arthur, when he was but a matter of hours old, and her 2 daughters, one was taken away at the age of 4 and one at the age of 6. And that was terribly painful for Igraine, but also those 3 children and the relationships that they have with each other as they grow, which I'm now telling in book 2, which takes place about 20 years later, when these children, who are babes and small children in The Chosen Queen, are now adults. And that sense of anger and almost like a blood feud between them, because the 2 girls very much blame Arthur, because it was his father who killed their father and who also, by deception, got Igraine with child, which resulted in Arthur. So there's this big tension between these three children. But I loved at the beginning creating such a strong sense of Igraine as a mother and the love that she had for her children, and that their memories of that time reoccur in the other books. And as she is a strong presence, and the story will move through the early years of Camelot, but again focused much more from the eyes of the women, and take us all the way through some of the stories that are known and well known, but also some of the very unknown stories that have been removed from the canon because possibly they don't always show Arthur in as good a light as Hollywood filmmakers would like him to be. And at the very, very end, there is a reunion, and Igraine is definitely brought back into the picture.
That's awesome. Awesome. So everyone can keep that connection going through the books as you go. So is the first one available in England and in the US?
It will be published in England on the 17th of July.
Great, great, because I know we have an audience in England for sure as well. And that's going to be interesting to see how the English audience takes us, since it is your country, right? And the American audience, because, you know, it's like you're raised in England knowing about King Arthur a lot. And then over here, I think it is more of the Hollywood perception. I don't know. You know, I knew about when we lived in England for about a year and a half, and King Arthur was alive as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, definitely. If I said how many books, but I mean the number of books, films, TV series that have featured King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and also the magical stories as well, and Tintagel, which is the castle in Cornwall. Now the castle that's there now is not of Arthur's era. It's several hundred years younger than that. But the place where so much of this happened is a remarkable, haunting and most romantic spot. It is absolutely beautiful. And there is a cave below the castle, which is called Merlin's Cave, which according to legend is when Arthur was born, Merlin made his way out through the cave and in secret took Arthur away from that place. And that's all there to see. You know, although, yes, you can stand there and there may be an aeroplane in the sky, or there might be cars behind you. When you look out to sea and you look at the causeway and you look at it, you can feel almost as if you're back there. You can almost feel as if they're there. And if you turned, you would just see Igraine riding her horse across the causeway.
Oh my gosh. So in writing, do you get, you know, you went to these places, obviously, not far from you. Go there, you get that sense of feeling, but did you start reading like a lot of stories about it, or do you have to kind of put that away at some point and say, okay, I got to do my story and ignore everybody else's now?
Exactly. I have been reading these stories since I could read. My father was very into history and archaeology and used to take me to a lot of these sites. And so I've sort of grown up with the stories, but both the what you might call the classic stories, but also the more modern twists on them, things like The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. And so I wanted to tell the story for quite a long time, but once I started telling it, I have not read a single Arthurian book since then, because what I don't want to do is feel that, is that my idea, or have I subconsciously taken it from somebody else's interpretation? So yeah, I do keep myself locked away from it. But what I do is I do a lot of historical research. So when I write about, you know, if I'm talking about what I'm writing now, one of the scenes I was talking about in the practice yard, and I wanted to know, well, what wood would they use to actually make a practice sword? Because when they were practicing fighting, they wouldn't use metal swords because obviously you could hurt somebody. So wanting to find out, well, what trees were growing in this part of England in sort of 500 AD, and everything I put in like that, you know, it's got to be real. I can't reference a metal that wouldn't be there or a plant that wouldn't be there. And the archaeological in the book, there is a long sea journey. And I wanted to find out, was it actually physically possible? Did they have ships in Cornwall at that time that could sail all the way around the coast up to the Isles of Orkney, right off the coast of Scotland? And I found, yes, they did. And one of the things that I discovered, well, I didn't discover it, but archaeologists very, very recently have found that Tintagel itself was a major part of the European trade routes, and they have found things there that have come from Africa, that have come from Tunisia, that have come from hundreds and hundreds of miles away, because Cornwall had its tin mines, it had its own products that were being exported around the world. And so, yes, they would have had ships that could do long, long ocean-going journeys. And so I then researched the design of them and what they were made of. So those things, I very much make sure that they are as accurate as I can make them when I write the books.
Does any of that spur on another scene for you? That, it's like, hey, I didn't know this, man. This is cool. What if we make them do this?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's real serendipity that quite often you look for something. So in the book that I'm writing now, which has magic in it, all of these books do, and I wanted to take one of my characters into the sort of elven underworld so that they would walk along the elven paths, because it's a much faster way to go from A to B. And I thought, well, where can I start this? And one of the things that's always fascinated me is under London, there are several forgotten rivers that used to be up on the surface, but which now run deep, deep below the city. And one of them is called the Tyburn. And I wanted to find a way that I could take her in through the mouth of the Tyburn. And I did some research and I found this place called Thorney Island that I'd never heard of, which is an island upon which all of the Palace of Westminster and bits of Buckingham Palace now stand. And back then, in the 500s, it was an island where the River Tyburn met the Thames. And on that island was a mound. And this is actually mentioned in Malory's Morte d'Arthur as a place where Guinevere would take her knights a-maying. So I had no idea this existed, and just simply delving, and I found the most perfect place that was true, that was real. It's absolutely amazing.
I love the whole magic about it. And I love, throughout United Kingdom, the fairy magic as well. There's something just, I think it's because when we go back to Druid times, there was this connection with nature. And then it started to, everything started changing in religious beliefs,
Yes.
And that changes how families, you tie into that. It's like, okay, we believe this. Well, I believe this over here, and then it starts to divide. It's kind of, I think our world is going through this right now.
Yes. There is nothing new under the sun, as they say. And yes, it's one of those things that obviously Christianity had reached England at this point, but it wasn't until probably the 700s or 800s that it became truly established. And so there was a lot of the pagan religions. There was a lot of the sort of Druidic worship, and you're absolutely right. So much of this was simply about nature. It was about the power of nature. It was about husbanding your fields. It was about recognizing that, as you move into autumn and the daylight begins to reduce and the nights become longer, and you're saying thank you for what you've had that year, and you're preparing for the year to come, and you're preparing for a time possibly of calm and rest as the earth sleeps. That conflict is part of the book, because yes, Igraine is very much somebody who belongs to the old ways, but her husband is not, and her husband is showing an increasing interest in Christianity, in the faith that has been brought to the kingdom, and that causes a conflict because he doesn't want his daughters, for example, to be educated. He thinks, whereas the Igraine part of her belief system is that women should be educated and they should go and they should
Mother
learn.
Nature is she's the
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's moving away from the Mother Nature. So
Yes.
leaving the feminine side and going, I want to be the big, powerful soldier, and my leader or God is the big, powerful one and more male. And yeah, again, it's happening now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is.
Unbelievable. It is actually quite unbelievable when you think about it. And so when you think about these legends, there's a lot of truth to them of just how human beings are. And there is magic in humanity when we decide to tap into that, I believe.
I think so too. And I think that's the reason why legends are so enduring, is because they tell us something fundamental about ourselves. If you look at the legend, it's a Greek legend of Icarus, that is about pride, the story, and it still resonates with us that, if we do not take care, if we simply allow our pride and our ambition to be overwhelming, it is quite likely that we will come to a fall. And that story just encapsulates that so perfectly. And I think that the legends of Arthur, of Igraine, they tell a story that's so fundamentally part of the human condition that it resonates, and it resonates across the centuries. And I think we'll probably continue to do so.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, I'm excited about this. A whole series. Is this going to be so like every year you'll have one, or? Everyone
That's
just
my
stay
hope.
tuned on their journey. Yeah, because it's
That's
a,
my hope.
is this what you do all the time now? It's got to be like, it's like an obsession. And
It,
there's so
it's,
many
it
rabbit
is.
holes with this kind of history, and it's fun. Do you go to museums to look at the actual objects to,
I
to
do. I do. I mean, I spent some time up in Orkney, which is a remarkable place. It's got so many Neolithic remains, and again, it's a place where you can really sense the magic. I also have found some really interesting legends in Corsica, and have found a way, and the legends that relate to sort of types of magic and myth that don't appear anywhere else in Europe. And I've found a way to knit those in and weave them in. But no, I also have a full-time job. So I do my writing sort of in what you might call the nooks and crannies of time where I
yeah,
can find time to do it. But I work for the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden
that's
in
right.
London.
That's so amazing, isn't it? Wow, how lovely. So
It's
then
a
it
beautiful
ties in
place.
because it's the arts, and the
Yeah,
arts, I always say the arts tell the truth and the devil.
they do. They have to, because if they don't, if you're listening to opera or you're watching ballet, if it isn't true, if it isn't fundamental, you
You're
just,
not going to
it's
buy
just
the story.
You're not.
Yeah.
It's just people dancing about or people making noises. It has to be something that hits you in the heart.
That's exactly what we were saying about these legends are because it ties into something we can see actually being real, even if
Yes,
there's a unicorn. I mean, maybe we did have unicorns. I see that as totally real through looking at the evolution of different animals. So,
yeah.
I just don't, because we
Well, even
never
if we
know.
didn't,
We're
we should have
limited.
done.
We want a unicorn. Come
Yeah.
on, who doesn't? I do want to tell you that so I'm a musician and songwriter from a long, long time ago, and I don't do that now. But I did write a song called Merlin.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, I did have a song, and it was a popular one when we performed it and stuff. But I always think about it, and was really about believing in your own personal magic. That you
yes,
are your own Merlin.
yes,
That was really what it was about, and that you could be really. You don't have to dress to the norms. You don't have to do what society says, and to find your identity and to find the magic within, even if you don't believe in, if you're looking different or acting differently than others, that to believe in what they don't
absolutely.
like.
Believe in yourself. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it's Shakespeare that the thing to thine own self be true came.
Mm.
But I remember my mother, that was always her favorite thing. And we were always a little bit unconventional at school, me and my brother and sister, and we would not necessarily dress the same way as other people. And we always
Yeah.
quite liked to be quite extreme with our hair and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you. See what happened to me and dolls. Yeah, they became
yeah,
punks anyhow. It was that
yeah,
era.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I think my mother's thing was, yes, obviously we are part of society and we owe it to ourselves to respect our fellow man, but to yourself be true. If you don't want to wear a tie, or if you want your hair to be purple, then do it, because
Hmm.
it's not hurting anyone and it's actually being true to who you are.
Yeah. And purple hair is fantastic. It is. Because you work and then you carve out these times to write, how hard is it to switch off and on? Because I find that really
Mm.
hard. It's like if you're doing podcasting and, business stuff, and then
Yeah.
it's time to write an article. I'm like, okay, should I have a glass of wine? No, keep it to the end. But the glass of wine could help. And then you look at what you wrote yesterday and you go, no,
Mm.
that did not help. How do you do this switch off? I play music personally. That sets everything for me. What about for you?
Yeah, music does really help. I'm also really fortunate that I live literally right by the sea. I'm just one street back from the sea, and the sea is a place that no matter if it's calm or if it's raging, if the waves are coming up or if it's right out to the horizon, the sea always calms me. And I find that particularly at this time of year when it's bright and very, very early in the morning, a walk by the sea helps me compose myself. And at the end of a working day, just listening to the waves as well. But yes, I am a person who I will promise myself a glass of wine, but I will not have it until I've finished. Whatever I've set for myself that day, it's
Yeah.
got to be done before
Yeah.
I'll have a glass of wine. But I think I have to set myself challenges and goals on a daily basis, because otherwise I wouldn't get everything done. So I think it's about being realistic with yourself as to what you can achieve. Sometimes being kind to yourself and saying, actually, I've only written 1,000 words, but that's going to be it today. The sun is shining, the sky is blue. I'm going to go out and look at the waves.
Exactly. No, you have to take care of yourself too.
Mhm.
Your brain needs that space too, to just be
Yes.
able to, all right, take one. That's what I was saying, because it's going from the left and the right brain. It's almost like we have to
Yeah.
push our buttons.
Yeah, you do, and I mean, that's the thing, that And also when you're trying to write or be creative, it doesn't always come. It doesn't always come. So you've got to allow yourself that space, to say, I'll sit down and I'll think I'm going to write. And then an hour later, nothing's happened.
Penguin on the beach. Let's go.
Let's go and see it. And I think you can sometimes almost deceive your mind.
Yes.
You can sort of say, I'm just going to go and, I don't know, I'm going to go and do some weeding in the garden, or I'm going to go. And then just the minute you start doing that, the idea sneaks in and you're good to go.
I think because you said chore, basically. So if you do a chore, you're like, all right, I don't really want to do this chore. Like, let's reorganize the closet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good until you get part way, you get all enthused, and then all of a sudden you look and went, what did I just do? That's a commitment. Let's go back and write. That sounds much more fun. You can create things, Yeah. Well, it has been lovely chatting with you. I'm so excited about your book. Everyone, it is out now. Again, it is called The Chosen Queen. It's by Sam Davey, and that's Davey. And you can go to samdaveyroughmagic.net. The link is in the episode notes. It's out everywhere you can get it. And in England, again, coming out in July, mid-July. So watch for that in England. And if your local bookstore doesn't have it, well, we all know what to do, don't we? Knock, knock. All right. Thanks so much, Sam, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.